Welcome back, Land Golf Academy members and guests. Today we're going to be talking about hitting down on the ball and how you can wade through all that information out there, and this information can contradict itself. And specifically, my fellow countryman David Leadbetter, yes, David Ledbetter, who doesn't even swing like he describes. And we're going to look at his cause and effect and why you shouldn't really listen to people that are out there unless they understand your body makeup, your ability, your talent, your hand-eye coordination, yada yada yada. Oh no, not today. But if you do like this, hit that like, share, subscribe. Really helps the channel grow. And also don't forget this Sunday, our Red Light Live series. If you want me to look at your golf swing for your cause and effect for free, go ahead and email me your face on and down the line. The link is in the description below of where to send it to. But other than that, let's have some fun today and learn how to actually hit down on the golf ball and not listen to all those gurus out there. Oh God, that's it. Return to the depths of hell! No more of that garbage. Let's watch the video. Okay, so before we get started, we have to look at what David Ledbetter discusses about hitting down on the golf ball. So hopefully I don't get a copy strike on this, but let's just take a peek into what he describes to hit down on the ball.
One of the myths that's been around for a long time is that players, in order to get the ball up in the air with an iron, try to hit under the ball. Now
remember that, they try to hit under, and you saw him with that motion.
It's the last thing that you want to do. Yeah, the way the club is designed, okay, it allows you to hit down onto it, imparts backspin, and that's in fact what sends the ball up in the air. So it's not.
So he should have said a little bit more detail. The club has a leading edge and also the bounce. Now the bounce helps the club not to dig in the ground. So the leading edge slices to the ground. The bounce prevents the club from going in. It actually kicks back up to save your wrist and to save your golf club. So just a little bit more information would be helpful for the average amateur watching this. Also, what gets the ball up in the air is the degree of the club face. Backspin helps keep the ball in the air longer. It definitely affects the flight time of your golf ball, but not necessarily to get it initially up in the air.
Yes, you could do that on a tee, but in reality, if you want to hit a solid iron shot and to get the ball up in the air and to impart some backspin, you have to learn to hit down on the ball. In other words, when you hit the golf ball...
So look at his position there, right? His hands are well ahead of the golf ball, and we're going to see what happens when he actually hits the ball.
You've got to hit it with your hands leading the club head rather than the club head leading the hands. Let me show you. Just like that.
All right, so just like that. Now what we're going to do is take a look at his golf swing and see if he did it just like that. Okay, so first off the bat, we have to talk about this forward press. And if you're a fan of the show, if you watch me at any time, you understand why I do not approve of forward pressing for average amateurs. You should not try to invite this chaotic motion because it does require some compensatory moves based on your motion. But because this camera is at a 3/4 angle, it's going to mess with us a little bit. But what I want to show you is bring up another video. But before we get to that and see the action of the hands, that divot's not very deep. It's a shallow divot, but we'll talk about why it's shallow and why he doesn't necessarily get his hands ahead of the golf ball in impact. He actually does a little bit of a scooping action, which he's telling us not to do. But let's take a look at the newer swing. Okay, here we go. Now this is a great swing because it is right in front, and we can talk about this forward press and how it's destroying more golf swings than anything to try to steal that motion of getting your hands in front naturally. We are going to draw that 90-degree angle from wherever that golf shaft is connected, and it's on his lead shoulder. Now the one issue with this is now we have to look at where that tilting of his setup, and this is where things can get a little bit disorganized. So we see that the hands are connected to the center of his chest, which is great. Based on this setup, that's where the ball position should be, but because he's getting those hands ahead, he has now created this angle between his golf ball setup and his spine setup. And we can see that we have two circles that are not connected. Now, what I've seen happen is we're going to draw a line right up the middle of these two. And this is that compensatory motion that I am talking about, but it has a couple of adverse effects. So let's look at that blue line for a second. We're going to go to the top of the swing. I'm going to see he does a nice job of turning around, getting to the top. And now the first move, let's watch what happens with the first moves. More specific with his center of his chest. He tries to go down, but take a look at where that center is moving. It's moving to get to the middle of these two lines that he set up. So this is the compensatory motion I'm talking about, is he's trying to close that gap. Now, he can't get all the way to that red line, because if he does, his golf ball position would be so far back, he'd really have to throw his hands. But because of this motion, let's just take another quick look at where his golf ball is set up according to his body. So the golf ball is running right through about the center of his chest. But because he has to lurch left to compensate that forward press, he has now moved the center of his body ahead of where the golf ball was. So essentially, he's moved the golf ball 4 or 5 golf balls back of where it should have been if he just remained centered. But he couldn't remain centered because he separated these two angles. So this is an adverse effect. Now, when you move the golf ball position back, now it's off his right shoulder. What's the one thing that he has to do to hit that golf ball? Because it's moved back, he's got to activate those hands. So we see a loss of angle much quicker, and past impact, we see that the hands are now just catching up to the chest. But what happened to that right hand? It had to scoop to try and hit that golf ball. So he doesn't even get the forward press because he cannot, based on that setup. So maybe that might make sense to you, but to help even make more sense, let's bring up somebody who actually does it correctly. So here we have Brooks Koepka. Now, Brooks does not have an exaggerated forward press. He has a slight forward press, and 90 degrees from that forward press angle versus where his shoulder angle is. And let's draw the shoulder tilt angle, and we draw from where the chest is in the center of his shoulders straight down through his hands. So yes, we can see that that is a slight forward press, still a forward press nonetheless, but we'll take a look at the difference between this one. So if we draw the same blue line that separates those two together, we can see that his compensatory motion is not as much as David. So let's take a look and see if that occurs. As he gets down into impact, we can see that his chest stops. Look at that, stops right where the blue line is. So even he has to make that subtle compensation to match up these two lines to kind of get him to be a little bit closer. But because it's only a small motion, we're going to draw where the golf ball is connected to his center at address. And we can see that it is only going to shift probably half of a ball width right at impact. And we extend that blue line over, so it's half of a golf ball width that he has shifted. So it really comes down to forward pressing. Now, if you were to not shift when you forward press and you stayed in your golf posture, your motion that is required to hit down on the golf ball, you'll hit down on the golf ball about here. And that's where you start to damage yourself, break your wrist, break your clubs, and your body knows this. So it has to get shifted left. Or you can be one of those freaks of nature that can stay back there, but increase your tilt and hold your wrist angle so long. But that requires a big body manipulation, and not that many people can do it. Yes, there are people that can, but they're the extreme outliers, and you should not try to emulate that to steal what is perceived as pressing the ground. Because if you take a look at as he strikes a golf ball, because he doesn't have to manipulate so much of that tiny little forward press, his body can stay down, and we see the head height stay back and down. So his body, once it goes down, it stays at that level because he can now turn and tilt correctly. And when he strikes it, we see that his hands are still pressing where the golf ball was. They haven't gone through, a la my countrymen. But let's pull up the countryman one more time. We're going to see he cannot stay down because of that forward press. So we see here's his head height. As he tries to go down, what is happening to his head? It's not going down, it's going up. Now we have to think about, why is it going up? Well, if you move your body so far left to accommodate for your forward press, you have to throw your hands early. In order to not hit the ground, your body has to come up, because if you release too early, you're elongating that distance, and guess what's in the way? Earth. So you have to now move up to time that, and then just barely scoop the ball, and we have a very shallow divot. So I'm not saying it can't work. It's just a lot of timing involved. And for those of us who spend our weeks working, having a family, staying married, have hobbies, we cannot sit here and do this over and over like he wants you to do when he doesn't even do it right. So it all comes down again to grip, alignment, setup, posture. Make sure you are set up correctly for your body type, for your abilities, for your range of motion, and your hand-eye coordination. No two swings are alike, and please do me a favor, treat your swing as an individual. Go to a golf coach that understands this, and if you need help finding one, let me know in the comments below and I'll definitely help you out. And if you want to see more of this stuff, specifically with the amateurs, come with me on Sundays on this channel, 8 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, where you guys send me your videos. I help you diagnose your cause and effect, teach you why things are happening in your swing, and I guarantee you it mostly stems around your setup. But we have to look at you as a human. Can you get set up correctly, or is that the issue? Hope that helps you. See you next time. Fairways and greens.